The stories of people I really believe have this one common theme, and it's really simple. They all say, I just don't believe my eyes. They are just in awe and shock, and they've witnessed something that feels like it shouldn't be real, but they've seen it. It changed everything for me. There's something going on that the public doesn't know. This is not being acknowledged in the way that it should be acknowledged. The public has a right to know. They should have a right to know because we pay for everything. If we're at this point where this is regularly happening, or perhaps it's been regularly happening, and if we look at the history of it, it has been a regular thing for a very long time. But if we're arriving at this crux where there are enough people who are having experiences and who are speaking up about it, eventually it's going to happen.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 107. In this episode, I speak with actor and artist Julian Lucas. This is one conversation you're not going to want to miss. Julian has a fascinating UFO story. We talked about UFOs, aliens, ancient civilizations, and a whole lot more. I cannot wait for you to check it out. To watch this podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. To listen to this podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here's my conversation with Julian. Well, Julian Lucas, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast. About dropped the phone there.
Hey, thanks, Sam.
So we might need to revisit what you just said. So where were you at in Huntington Beach for Donald Trump's birthday? Did I hear that correct?
Yeah, so just a little, let's catch the audience up to speed. We were talking about the similarities between Florida and California. They're like parallel opposites of each other. And growing up in Tampa is comparable, I think, to maybe growing up in Huntington Beach here. And that brought me to the story that the first time I went down to the pier at Huntington Beach, it was on Donald Trump's birthday. And I didn't know this. So they were having a rally out there on the beach. And I went into a gas station. I'll never forget this. I went into a gas station and this woman and this man is checking out. And she looks at him over the counter and goes, "Can you believe what that Dr. Fauci just said?" And the guy goes, "What?" And she goes, "He said we have to start wearing masks over our eyes."
Wait, when was this exactly?
Was at the gas station at Huntington Beach during the Donald Trump birthday rally.
And how long ago was this, though, when this?
Like 2 years ago.
Oh,
3 years
okay. I
ago.
thought this was recently. It sounded
This was in the heat of the action.
I was going to say, so, okay.
But it was just, I couldn't believe that the two humans were having that conversation. It was wild.
And it was like a serious conversation. It wasn't like,
She was so serious.
Do you remember what you were getting at the gas station? It's really random. I'm just curious.
I don't know. Baby barf or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we went out to the beach. There's like 40 people dressed head to toe like the karate instructor from Napoleon Dynamite, waving their flags.
I heard Newport Beach gets real serious down that way. Like they do like the with the boats.
Oh yeah, so in Tampa they had a huge Trump boat rave party. Basically, everyone got in their boats and had partied out in the bay to celebrate the president.
Yeah,
that's patriotism.
Yeah, God bless America, right?
Could you imagine if we did that for Joe Biden? What kind of? It'd be like canoes and I don't know.
Like a very
it would never happen.
Canoes, maybe like some type of inflatable tube or something.
Yeah, didn't mean to bring up politics so early in the conversation, but the debates tonight.
It's happening right now as we speak.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, maybe in the future we'll have a TV right here so we can like live stream
and we're coming at you live from the Sam Dever Podcast Studio, watching the American national debate.
Yeah, no, politics is one thing we really don't dive into on here, but someone actually is going to be coming on shortly who does a politics show and everything. So I think it will be
Sure.
it's just interesting to watch like everything, like to watch it from afar and just see us as humans interact.
Yeah.
And boy, like really the analogy of, I think I'm butchering this, but it's like black ants and white ants or red ants, and you shake them up and then they all start going to war with each other. Like they're fine the way they were, but then they shake it up and then the ants start attacking each other. And that's how I view like the political scene a lot of times. It's like, here, let's throw this story at them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It was really nice being at Burning Man and just like completely disconnecting for 12 days.
Great transition, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. We can shoom.
So tell
segue.
me about Burning Man. I've never been and always heard a lot of amazing things.
Wow. What a place. What an awesome place. I've worked in live entertainment for the better part of a decade now. I started working at Universal Studios Orlando Resort. I did contracts at Disney World. I've done regional theater, and I've seen so many different shows all across the world because of my friends, and going to see them and their performances. And when I say like nothing, it comes even close to the vision of Burning Man, I mean it. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Were you DJ and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Were
yeah.
you DJing up there, or were you
Yeah,
just going?
yeah.
Okay.
I went with a crew. So they have group camps, and the project is made up of mostly group camps. This year they were opening up more sections for single campers, and I think they're trying to appeal to that market. But I went with the group camp, the Cougar Art Car. It's known throughout the SoCal scene. They have a nice reputation at Lightning in a Bottle. They host a lot of the afters of the lake. Great crew, amazing people, nothing but love for this entire crew. Awesome people. So, yeah, I was working as an audio technician on their car. The thing shoots fire out of the top and has like disco ball eyes, and it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary, but it has also like a friendly, mischievous quality to it. The Cougar is it's a Bulgarian spirit that wards away malevolent entities. So they made this art car in the form of their interpretation of this Bulgarian spirit, and it's a great car. Super awesome. It's almost it's like 2 stories, and has a stripper pole in the back.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah, it's a good time with the Cougar family.
Now, I tell you, is this something they do every year?
Yeah, they've been doing it a while. I think this is like their 5th year.
Yeah.
And they're really trying to find more opportunities to employ the car in its use. So if anyone's looking for a wild, awesome mobile soundstage, that's who you want to hit up. It was kind of funny. We were testing the sound system in a random parking lot on a Sunday, and this group of Mexican guys drove past us in a truck, like hey, like checking out this car. And they got out and started talking to the owner, and they actually ended up hiring them. They're like a mariachi band,
What?
and they wanted to use the car as a backdrop, as a set. And we're like, heck yeah, like it's amazing. So
Was this like outside? Because Burning Man, that's like way past Reno, right? Like it's way,
yeah, it's no man's land.
like literally no. What is? Do you even know the closest town to where you're at there?
The closest town is called Gersh
Okay.
something.
It's probably really small too.
It's grown a lot because of the Burning Man project. Yeah, I learned a little bit about that area. I think it's on BLM land, and there's also native reservations nearby too.
Okay.
So a lot of different communities out there who contribute to and are a part of that project locally. It's super cool.
Yeah, because the people I've met that do the Burning Man, I mean, it really is. I mean, it's a tradition now for a lot of people. They go the burn is what they say.
It is for me. It was like day 2. I was already like, next year
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like I'm gonna bring enough food. I didn't bring enough food.
Oh,
It was, but there's like the concept there, it's like a non-commodified society, and um it's all based on gifting without any expectation of return. So
yeah, that's what I've heard. I mean, at least that's what it was founded upon, right? Like it's just like this community of people that want to just anti-corporation, establishment type, getting back to like humanity at its core.
yeah, I wouldn't say that's like the official vision of the project, but a lot of those principles attract people like that for sure.
So what is it about then? Like really, I don't know if I've even gotten like the true definition. Like what is it supposed to be like its main
They talk a
thing?
lot about like just like radical inclusion, radical love, um, and just this radical respect and radical expression. Really, it's like a just a judgment-free Disneyland, but it's not made and controlled by this huge for-profit corporation. They're actually a nonprofit, and they distribute the tickets and the funds in the forms of grants to support the project worldwide.
Judgment-free Disneyland. That's a
It's
that's
a
a great.
judgment-free Disneyland. It totally is.
Do they police any of that? Like if someone started making fun of somebody, would everyone else be like, "Hey, don't make fun of him"? Or
Probably, but I did not see a single bad vibe for the 12 days I was there. If there was a couple arguing, it was like two super chill adults. Hey, I didn't appreciate that. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, but not like the normal stuff you see where it's like, I can't believe you did this. Like, oh, you fought it. We all know that, right? You've been at the concert or the rave, and someone's just having a meltdown in the back of the room, in the back of the stage.
what was it like the weather? Was it extremely hot? Because I feel like that would make people irritable if it was as hot as it was here. Was it?
We had really good weather this year. It did rain before we got there, and that was kind of intimidating. But it ended up keeping the dust down for a few extra days and started the week off really cool. The nights were kind of chilly. I had to pick up extra equipment on my way up because I didn't expect to be going so high in elevation, and then it just gets cold.
Yeah.
Cold and dry, but then it gets hot because the sun is out, and it's just like, oof, it's wild.
And I've always heard, you'll see people that are just there pitching a tent, and then you'll have like tech millionaires and celebrities like in these huge RVs. And did you see that? Did you see?
This might be a gifting, non-commodified society, but there can still be a class structure. That's just how humans are, man. And that's why it's a beautiful, brilliant place. Like, it's so complex, and how people just make these webs of communities and camps, and like every street has at least 3 bars on it, and it's all open bar. It's all free alcohol. You're mostly just getting through the day in a alcoholic stupor while you drink your water and have your mint julep.
What do you mean by bar? Is that just like a tent, pop-up tent?
It's like people run bars. It can be a rather extravagant dance floor setup, like these people have basically built a club in the middle of the desert, or it could be a small hole in the wall experience. Like. And every bar has a theme and a camp theme, and they serve, and there's a schedule. You get a schedule and a map of the entire camp, so you can go by category. Everything you're looking for you can find. Is very well organized, that was the most surprising part to me. So the grounds are shaped in a clock, 1 through 12, and then by letter starting from the inside going outward. So we were like at K and 6 o'clock. Super easy. It's the very last row right by the exit. We were so central to everything. It was great.
Perfect. And that's something you can't just show up. You have to have a ticket to this, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they tell you where to tent or to camp. Like you are told, like you got to be here.
Yeah, you have reserved spots, and it's up to your camp to organize your camp. They'll organize your your space on the playa, but it's up to you to organize how your camp runs and functions. And these camps can be quite complex in their operations, for really small crews who are also there to have fun. There's like fuel and trash and getting ice and shade, building structures. It's like each camp is running its own little miniature festival in itself. And it's just these experiences in a circle that goes about 8 miles around.
8 miles?
Miles.
That's way bigger than what I thought it was. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot bigger than 8 miles.
Yeah,
That's a distance, man.
You go out. So once you leave the camps and you're riding your bike through the desert, it's so dark out there. It's like I never understood midair collisions until I was on the playa. Like, I used to think like, how do you crash into another plane? You're in the sky and you got all this sky around you. You can't see each other. Now I understand, especially being out on the playa, like on a one plane in the dark could be disorienting, but it was beautiful and it was extravagant.
I can only imagine the amount of stories that are out there of someone that starts with their camp on day one and they don't see them maybe till like the end of the like, dude, what happened to you? Like, dude, 8 miles of stretch, a lot can happen. Person could join a new community, anything, man. I didn't realize it was that big.
Massive. I'd say
That's
like
huge.
half the dial is camps. And then the other half is called the deep playa. They have big stages, big infrastructure, big art cars. People build an entire stage, 50, 60 feet across on a semi truck. My favorite one this year, shout out to the team, whoever did this. They built the Golden Gate Bridge on the back of a semi trailer and it was all in lights. So when it drove across the playa late at night, you just saw this lit up rendition of the Golden Gate Bridge, like flying like a ghost over the darkness of the playa. It was so cool.
And then the last day or night they burned the big Burning Man structure?
Yeah, the second to last night they burned the man, and that was one of the coolest pyrotechnic shows I've ever seen. Like it was extravagant. Like they were like massive explosions of green and blue flames, and it was like something out of a movie. The video is crazy. I'll have to show you. After or now, I don't know how you how you do references like that.
Yeah, no, we want to take a look after this. But how is it right on your phone? Like,
Mhm.
yep. Well, I mean, if we can pull it up, maybe.
Yeah,
Phone,
yeah. Sure.
And as you're doing that, like, so what was your favorite part about the experience? If you had to pick your favorite thing.
I had a lot of people ask me that question. What's your favorite part? And my favorite part was just that this thing exists because it was all connected. It was all one experience for me. I couldn't tell you any single one that I enjoyed more or less because I don't know, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, dope, man.
Look at this thing.
This is the main one.
Yeah. So for our viewers, it's like Roman candles like firing off.
Crazy.
Insane.
Well, send us this video and we'll put it in the edit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is it long? Oh! Dude, that was like a nuclear bomb.
I know, it is crazy.
Wow. Yeah. If you could send that to us.
Totally worth the wait, right? It's like
Yeah,
seeing
first you're
that-
like, yeah, this is cool. It's some fireworks. And then it's like,
I literally just thought I just assumed someone walked up to the man like they were burning a Roman pyre and they just throw a torch in and burn the man. I didn't realize it was gonna be like the Summer Olympics,
that might be interesting to do this at Burning Man one day.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
It sounds like an experience for sure. So
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot of content for very little production costs. That's
There's
what I'm
going to
saying.
be a lot of interesting conversations had at a place like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude.
And there's a lot of international people too. And you just never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I mean, you're meeting people, like you said, like everyone's one there, but dude, you might have someone that's a CEO of huge multi-million-dollar corporation and someone that's just has a regular J job, and these people become best friends at a place like that, it seems. you know?
Yeah, I definitely had like a life-changing
Yeah.
experience. I was in a bar, just waiting for my friend. It's called Vault 21, 21 Up. It's like a Fallout themed bar. It's a cool place. And they have like karaoke. So I was in the karaoke lounge just chumming it up with the karaoke DJ. We were just going back to back singing Sinatra on the microphone. And there was a woman in the audience who we were just vibing with, and she was singing, and we were all just drinking, hanging out. And it turns out she's like a music manager rep from Warner Music France. And she was like, "Oh, I may want to sign you." And I was like, "Huh? Really?" She said, "Yeah, maybe, let's talk." I'm like, "Whoa." So now I have a meeting with her, tentatively scheduled, in a few weeks from now. And
Dude,
who
that's
knows?
awesome.
It could be
Congratulations, because you're a singer too, right?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm just an odd mix of talents and aspirations, and my neurodivergence will choose one a week to focus on and jump around to.
Hey man, that's why LA is such a great place for, all of us that, especially when you want to do everything, like you can do it all here. You can be anything. So I think that might be a good transition because we're definitely I definitely want to hear a story you have to tell which began this conversation of this podcast. But before we get to that, tell us a little about your background and what you do and how you got to LA.
Okay, so I'm a musical theater actor. I'm a trained musical theater actor um, who has just been chasing a different vision for myself. I moved out here about 1 year before the pandemic happened to pursue music and to act and make my own work and just live a generally better quality of life for myself. Um, so I grew up as an actor and a performer in Florida and got my BFA musical theater from UCF. Go Knights, UCF, go Knights, eh?
University
And,
of Central Florida, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been out here 5.5 years, and things have started to just get weirder and weirder and more awesome. So yeah, I moved out here to produce electronic dance music and to act and produce and write in film and TV. And there's not been a lot of film and TV the last few years, but lots of music. So, and then other things like seeing UFOs and stuff.
Oh yeah, we're getting to that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, it's funny, and that's awesome, man. That's awesome. You do all that. I've been seeing this pop up more and more. It was on TikTok of all places, but I had heard this in conversations. LA, and I'll get your take on this. It takes a good 6-7 years, they say, to even get your footing out here. Because I remember when I was out here, like on year 2, I was telling them, yeah, man, I've been out here 2 years. And the person's just like, yeah, talk to me when you've been out here 7. And then some people even say 10. So I bring that up to say, do you feel like now that you've been out here a little while, now things are starting to click a little more? And there's a method to that madness, that this is a place that takes a little time?
I definitely have stuck it out on the 5-year rule. When I moved here, I accepted, it takes 5 years to really get established somewhere. And then so much of that progress was just muddled by a global pandemic, and I chose to stick it out through that too, because I believed in my heart that those of us who stuck by in the places that we love and wanted to be, I believe that there would be some kind of a reward at the end. And that's how I ended up breaking into film and TV and started working as a PA in that that huge vacuum of labor, and backlog of shows. There was a lot of opportunity, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And then things just get better and better, and people longer and build better relationships, and then you go on awesome podcasts with people that you just keep randomly running into all the time.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it, is because once it's a huge place, but you do start running into people industry wise
Hmm.
and stuff. It's big, but the community's small at the same time.
It's a hustle, and
Yeah.
hustlers tend to cross paths.
Yeah. Dang, that's a quote right there. That's good. Well, congrats on making it out here 5.5 years.
I'm barely making it, if I'm
Aren't we
being
all?
honest.
Yeah, aren't we all, brother? Like I always say, like most of us are all hanging by a thread out here. I
Yeah,
mean that in the most like positive, complimentary way to all of us, because it's a tough city. It's tough. It's expensive.
an extraordinarily unusual year between all the different labor strikes and labor shortages and AI and the the reimagining of what the future of entertainment is, and Hollywood also having to take a long hard look in the mirror and figure out, how they're going to tell stories that keep people genuinely engaged when they have a massive, massive amount of cheap and free entertainment available online through alternative streaming sources, you know? And I was just thinking about this the other day because I'm driving for Uber right now to make ends meet. And this woman in the back seat was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm probably on TikTok every night from like 7 to 12." And I was like, "What? That's 5 hours. You couldn't get me to a movie theater for 5 hours. But the apps, they got you, boom, hook, line, and sinker. And some of the great art of our time is coming out of it too.
Yeah, no, that's a good point you bring up. A lot of people are doing these vertical soap operas now, and like it's a big thing. Like they aren't.
Really.
Yeah, a lot of people are auditioning for them, and they're shooting like hours of content for these things because I think to your point, like people are just in here. They're just on the phone. They won't sit down for a hour and a half, 2 hour feature, but they'll watch 2 hours worth of clips.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely think there will always be that demand for the movie theaters, but the movie theaters are going to have to continue to find ways to bring in their audiences. And weirdly, I was thinking about this too. They've found success in that formula with their popcorn buckets.
It's just funny, but yeah, they have they had the Dune bucket and they had the Wolverine Deadpool bucket. So hey, I'm a huge movie theater fan. I love going to the movie theater. So whatever
Yeah.
they got to do.
I've worked a lot in live events the last 5 years that I've been here. And I feel like part of the reason a lot of people have drifted away from that media is because during the pandemic, that's all we could do, right? Like audiences, too much of anything is a bad thing, right? We were locked indoors. We got plenty of television. We got plenty of movies and plenty of content. And, people kind of came out of that and are like, I need to see more, like I was inside for 2 years. Some people thought they weren't going to make it, and then you're out. Would you really want to sit around and watch TV after being awoken inside like that? I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't, and it is, and look, I admit it all the time. Like the apps are addictive too. Like even like posting for the podcast all the time. It's like, okay, I'm just going to post on there. I'm going to get off. 30 minutes later, it's like, well, let me see what this has to say about that. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. And then next thing you know, you've gone through like 3-4 clips. It's crazy how
It's
much it
super
draws you in.
addictive. I don't know
Super
if you
addictive.
if you saw the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
That one disturbed me. That one really bothered me. Because you're like, oh, we were the lab rats. Like, I was in the 7th grade when Facebook became a thing. Like, there's no studies, there's no understanding, and no regulation of it either.
And I heard a lot of them, the execs at these companies don't even let their kids get on social media
Yeah.
because they know, I mean, similar to slot machines and casinos, it triggers that same dopamine,
Mhm.
the likes, the comments like, ooh, something new. Ooh, something new.
Yeah, it was really necessary for me to take those days off at the burn and just completely disconnect. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't have any signal. I was just like not on my phone. And now that I'm back, I'm like, like torn between who I was and who I am now, and realizing like I can do so much more for myself if I just don't watch crap. And it's not even like I love watching stuff on social media. I learn a lot. You gain information and knowledge, and you do build networks and get to know people, but you have to do it in a healthy way. Otherwise, you're the product.
Yeah, I had someone coin the term brain rot.
Brain rot.
They said, yeah, it's brain rot. They go, like people, sometimes you just want a little brain rot. And you look at it now, when I catch myself doing that, I'm like, oh, open the book. We're reading a book. We're not doing because it's the same thing as flipping channels, like flipping channels used to be, except on a way more extreme scale. And there's a lot more channels.
And there's a lot about it that we still don't really understand,
Yeah.
in regards to the long-term effects of this technology in close proximity to us, and the light, and just how they kind of warp our reality and our view. I had a friend who worked for Netflix, and he was hired as a graphic designer, and they would design 6 different versions of every film advertisement poster, and everything that you see on there, those pictures are tailored to you, specifically for Sam sitting there watching. They're like, oh, I think he might like this movie, so I'm going to show him, oh, he likes shots with ice cream based off of these statistics, so he's going to see the frame of the movie with the ice cream cone in it. And now you're like, I like ice cream,
Whoa.
Yeah. It's like the degrees at which things are now catered to us through our phones is extreme. It's extreme. And that really shapes our worldview. And it's necessary, I think, for everyone, sometimes to take a step back from that catered worldview and just, like get a breath of fresh air. Not everything is as bad as it seems. Your neighbor's not plotting against you. Some of them are, though. Not my neighbors.
Well, and it goes to the political thing we were talking about. I mean, really, how much of it's in the book? It's over there. I've mentioned it on this show before, but 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Accounts by Jared Lanier. And he says how, like, if you're a full-blown Republican and the algorithm knows that you're they're going to show you content that confirms your bias. Democrat, same thing. Independent, same thing. So in your mind, it's creating these enemies and this reality that's really not even there. So I think you bring up a great thought piece on that. It's like, yeah, the world's really not, well, not everyone's against you, but we think everyone's against us. And then what happens is, like, the social dilemma, that, like, the ending of that, the kid got all fired up, goes to the rally, ends up, it was all created in his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because we live in the age of information, and the equal and opposite con of that is disinformation. And I felt like that was probably going to be a central theme of what we discussed tonight, because of my experience on the show, and our discussions about, like, modern media and where media is going.
Yeah, no, I love it's a perfect. I'm just making sure we're good, because I know we're about to get into the thick of it. Because when I saw you, dude, it's been like 6 months ago, I think, when you and I had a conversation. You're like, hey, I went on this show. I saw a UFO. I'm like, really? That's interesting. We definitely have never talked about something like that before. And the internet loves alien stories.
Yeah.
By the way.
I know.
So don't be shocked if this is titled like something crazy UFO.
Look, we're talking about some pretty crazy stuff, It's okay. It is what it is. I mean, we're talking about things that are happening and yet being suppressed at the same time. And it's commonplace now. It's becoming common in nature, like, I was scrolling through the apps the other night, and there's this great video where this guy pranks his mother with by streaming a fake video, like an emergency government broadcast. Yeah. It's a classic. It's hysterical, but she believes it because we as a society are really encroaching this point where this is rather acceptable to talk about. And a lot of people have had experiences in their personal lives more than you would think. And then there are other publications. What actually really surprises me about Fox News, I'm not a fan of Fox News, and this is not a political thing, but they do discuss UFOs a lot on Fox News. And that really surprises me. And I commend the publication for following up on some of these stories and getting to the truth about what's really going on over our skies, you know?
So with that all being said, can you please tell us the story of what happened and leading you to the show and everything with the show?
Sure.
Take us through the timeline, if you will.
What a timeline. it's a long timeline of events.
We got time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I had my first UFO sighting in Central Florida back in like 2018, in the time leading up to when I moved to California. And it was just myself in the car, and I'm driving down the road. I-4, the I-4 corridor. It's one of the busiest, deadliest traffic corridors in the United States. People are always getting in crashes on this highway. So I'm like 70 miles an hour down the road, entering Plant City, Florida, which is where I grew up. And something is like blinding me in my eyes. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm looking up in the sky and I see this thing there. And it is like, the outside is entirely chrome, and it's shaped like your kind of standard UFO, like an elliptical on its side. And it's just rotating and hovering. And because the craft is chrome, it's catching the light, and as it turns, it's refracting the light into my eyes while I'm driving. And I'm just like looking at this thing in the sky, like, what in the actual hell is that?
Like, how high above you are we talking?
250, 300 feet.
Okay.
250, 300 feet off the ground. Pretty high up, but pretty close. Still close enough where the light is going to be reflecting into my eyes.
The light from your headlights, or the light from
No,
what?
it's from the sun. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, gotcha.
The sun is beating down.
Gotcha.
The hot Florida sun is beating down on a craft floating just off the highway
This is during the day.
during the day.
Wow.
And flashing light in my eyes. And I just like, you can't really see it because it's the sun reflecting in your eyes, but I can see the outside edges of this thing. It's chrome. It looks like an egg, and it's spinning. And I was just like getting off the highway on my exit, just like keeping my eyes on it. Like, I really can't believe, what I'm seeing. And I get off the road and I continue my drive home, and I'm like, did that really just happen? Let it go. Let it go. A couple months later, on that same stretch of road, opposite time, 2 a.m, opposite direction, I see like this orange orbish thingy, like an orange orb, like a street lamp orange. And it's like just hovering and flying over the highway really fast, really fast. It just like, I saw it, it happened. That goes on the maybe list. There's an airport nearby. It could have been a small plane, a very strange color, but whatever. It was like, whatever. 5 years later, I'm going to fast forward 5 years. So I have these experiences, and I'm generally open to the idea. I've seen something I don't know how to explain. I have 2 experiences 3 weeks apart on opposite ends of the country, and I catch both on camera. So, and this is what you don't hear on the TV show, because the footage is the footage of that incident, not very clear, especially when you like send it to other people. It needs to be viewed in the dark, because I was on a boat coming into the port of Miami at 4 a.m, right? I just spent like 8 or 9 days touring the Caribbean. I mentioned earlier, I got friends I like to visit, see them on their shows. Shout out to my boy, Joey Hurd. He's my best friend. I love him. It's great. We're coming in 4 a.m. It's the end of the cruise. I've had a couple to drink, and I'm in the front of the boat with a beautiful woman. And I ask her, do you believe in aliens? And she's like, oh yeah, well, it's possible, I suppose. She's like a biology major. She's studying veterinary science. And we talk about it for like 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, cool. And then conversation ends. And I swear to God, as soon as the conversation was over, there it was. And it was flying through the sky above us. And I pointed at it and I went, oh, look, a shooting star. And then it just kept flying. And I was like, okay, it's a very large, fast, bright satellite, right? And then it stops dead in its tracks. It reverses course and it flies the opposite direction. And my jaw just like hit the fucking deck of the ship. I was like, and I'm looking at her and I'm like, are you seeing this right now? And she's like, yeah, I am. And I grab my phone and I try to film what I can for the last few seconds. And on the footage, and I'll show you the footage. Maybe I can get an AI auto upscaled version of it. I've been talking about doing that to see if that makes an impact or not. But on the footage, you can see it if you take it frame by frame, because this thing is flying so fast. This thing is like flying like Mach 8, Mach 9. It's like a kid has a laser pointer in his hand and he's just firing it wherever he wants it to go. It was that fast. The fastest thing I've ever seen in my life. I swear on this water bottle on this table. I don't know. I know the stakes aren't that high with just a water bottle, but I swear on my life, what I saw was real and someone else saw it that night. And that thing maybe flew like 60 miles in like half a second. Like based off of where I'm standing on Earth and how high up this thing is and how far it's traveled from point A to point B, an impossible distance. And then it was gone. And the footage, you can see it. It just like, it shines and it has this shiny quality to it. Very like a silvery kind of light. That's why it caught my eye, right?
How big would it be? Like the size of a plane?
If we were looking at it, it's about the size of a satellite if you see it, but a little bigger and brighter and moving fast. I mean, it kind of had a like a trail to it too. It almost felt like it had some kind of a wispy quality, but I don't know if that was almost like just like a tracer effect because it's flying that fast. Or, however that technology functions, maybe leaves some kind of a trail or a reaction. So that happened. You see it flies in, boom. Total boner killer. Seriously, like,
I was curious.
I'm gonna tell this story.
So
this is definitely.
It was set up so well.
This is definitely going in my stand-up. Just add that to the checklist. Of
yeah,
things
you just stand up.
And I have a fashion line, and I drive a Tesla. And I know it's a Prius.
I got an app coming out as well.
Yeah, I like to joke that I got cock blocked by an alien. Because after you see something like that, it moves you.
Yeah.
It changes you. Like you see something that breaks the laws of physics and it breaks your brain. So I was like, hey, I had a great night. I'm going to go to bed now.
Real quick.
Go get another drink.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it would be the speed would be the thing that really makes you okay, that is not something. Because like you said, oh, maybe it's a satellite or but when you saw it move that fast in that direction, that's when you knew like, okay, this is not.
Well, when it came to a complete stop,
right.
was when I was like, like, did I have too much? Like, am I asleep? Is this all a dream? One thing that I've come to find, the stories of people I really believe have this one common theme, and it's really simple. They all say, I just don't believe my eyes. They are just in awe and shock, and they've witnessed something that feels like it shouldn't be real, but they've seen it, and that is that's a very powerful thing. And it would make sense why our relationship with whatever that is out there is so complex and complicated, right? I'm sure the truth lies somewhere in the middle between grand government Men in Black conspiracy and a genuine concern of the broader implications of of a predetermined meeting, if that makes sense, right? Because it would change everything. It does change everything. It changed everything for me, you know, realizing that there's something going on that the public doesn't know. Realizing that, you know, this is not being acknowledged in the way that it should be acknowledged, right? The public has a right to know. They should have a right to know because we pay for everything, right? And if we're at this point where this is regularly happening, or perhaps it's been regularly happening, and if we look at the history of it, it has been a regular thing for a very long time. But if we're arriving at this crux where there are enough people who are having experiences and who are speaking up about it, eventually it's going to happen, you know. Complete disclosure, probably, I would say. But let's get to the actual incident that put me on the show.
So that's just leading up to this. What you're
Wow. But I think it's important to have that context, because it wasn't just one incident, it was two. Now, are you ready to have your mind blown by some synchronicity?
Absolutely.
The day that I had this sighting was the day before Congress had its first open door meetings on UFOs. I had the sighting the night before this meeting happened, and we start having these conversations. So I have this experience. I'd say for like 3 days, I was really in this kind of like a trance almost, just lost in like thought and possibility, and realizing that I don't know shit. We don't know anything. What we think we know is like every month now is like, it's out the window. It's like all these old outdated methods and systems, and it's getting faster and it's faster and it's faster. So I have this experience, go back home, go to EDC, go to LIB. I do that every year. I work each show back to back. And this year at LIB was miserably hot, like record-breaking heat for that part of the valley. Dust storms, dust devils. Pretty sure I got valley fever. I still love the festival. I still going. It's a big controversy online right now. I'm still going to the festival. I don't care. So I get off my shift and we're going back to camp. It's me and 4 of my friends, and we're just changing, getting ready for the night's fun and festivities. And I'm just like looking up in the sky because I'm always looking. I am always looking. That's after I had that first experience. You just never know when you're going to see it. I meet so many people that go, man, I want to see a UFO. The first thing I ask them was, when was the last time you looked? And they're like, oh, I've never looked. You're not going to see one. You're not going to see one if you're not looking, obviously. So I just see this thing in the sky. It's an orange orb. And it's an orange orb that looks a lot like the orange orb that I saw back on that stretch of I-4 at 2 a.m. 5.5 years ago. That's why that story was important. So I see this thing and I'm like, I've seen this before and I haven't seen it since. So I take out my phone, having just had this experience in Miami, and I'm just boom. And I say to everyone, I say, this thing is acting weird. It looks unusual. I'm just going to film it. And I guarantee you, if this is a UFO, it's going to do something weird. And I'm tracking it for like 1.5 minutes. And I'm just about getting to that point where I'm going to put the phone away. And then it starts to like blink and glimmer. It's almost like it's imagine a darker orange than this light here. And if the power just started surging in here, what that would look like, right? The filter is hot and then it's cool. It's hot and it's cool. And it kind of had that effect in the sky. And then just got dimmer and dimmer and then boom, disappeared. Just became dark. Gone. Boop. I don't know if it was like a cloaking thing or if this thing was traveling at an incredibly high rate of speed, and that's the light that was left behind from this craft, or if it went through some kind of a wormhole, or if it was a military project with some kind of advanced cloaking thing. But, my reasoning would think that if this was some kind of a man-made system, if it was going to go dark, it would just turn the lights off, right? I could understand why it might do that effect, but when I was on the show, I was like, I think it's a military aircraft, and the hosts brought up the possibility to me. They were like, have you ever considered that maybe they built the Air Force bases there for a reason? And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And people have sightings every year at this festival, and there was one this year too. I have the video on my phone. It's hella strange.
And you're talking about Life is Beautiful.
I'm talking about lightning in a bottle.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
mixing up the two. And
That's
where is
okay.
this located at?
This is in Bakersfield,
This is in
California.
Bakersfield.
It's an hour and a half north of here. It's pretty close. It's a great show, great crowd, great people, and awesome music. I highly recommend it. So this thing goes dark, and everyone in the parking lot is like, "Oh!" All my friends are we all audibly gasp, and we hear people in the distance also going, "Oh!" And when I was on the show, they had pictures and different angles of this thing. It had been shot from other people too. So this was like a real mass sighting event above the festival that year, and it wasn't just us who saw it and experienced it.
What are you doing? Stop. Chill. I'm gonna keep watching this for a second. This is super unusual, right?
Look, it's dimming. It's dimming. It's dimming.
What the fuck?
Are you looking at the same thing?
Holy shit.
Shit! It just dimmed.
Oh my god. It's gone. It's gone.
No. It's still moving.
Where?
Holy shit! Holy shit!
I don't even see it.
Whoa.
That just happened, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah! It went away.
David Bowie, take me away.
How did you get on the show? Like, how did you?
So,
And what are you able to plug the show? Where people can check that out?
yeah, absolutely. The show's called Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. You can find it on Discovery Channel and HBO Max. It was streaming around number 7 before I left for the burn. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it was streaming around number 7 before I left for the burn, which is really exciting. I'm really happy for the producers and proud to have been a part of that project. They flew me out to Roswell, and we filmed live there, so I got to see that city for the first time. And I had applied to work as a production assistant, actually, and had mentioned that I had footage. And they were like, "We would love to see your footage." And I was like, "I'd love to show you my footage." And we instantly connected, and everything was verified, and it was a great fit. And I was out there filming just for a night. We flew in, spent the day filming, flew out, had a terrible dust storm. And when you watch the show, I'm like a little red and puffy because my allergies are so bad from this dust literally blowing sideways and blowing sand in your eyes. And I had to take an allergy pill, and it was just not good for
man.
me personally. But it was an amazing experience, and meeting other people and hearing their stories and their experiences is also really reaffirming, because you can feel kind of nuts sometimes when you are outspoken about something so different that was more formerly taboo, and even today is still a taboo subject. People are so afraid of being labeled as crazy, because that was ultimately what the government wanted, right? They wanted to discourage people from being open about it, and they did that by relentlessly mocking them. Or, in the case of Bob Lazar, the original Area 51 whistleblower, just ruining his life, And sometimes I wonder about that, but I have faith that there are more people today that want to talk about it and would want to support me on a platform than there are people who would want to stymie me, if that makes sense.
That's why we have podcasts for, right?
Hey,
We're gonna
absolutely.
get that show to number 6 after that. So, well, yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. So you were able to interact and talk with other people's stories. What were the other stories like? Were they very similar? Were there some that were just completely different types of sightings? Was it just seeing UFOs, or were there actual people that had alien encounters?
These are close encounters.
Okay.
Close encounters with different kinds of crafts. Like there was one fella, he's a Maine lobsterman, real man's man, great guy, down to earth kind of guy. At one point in his career, controlled like 46% of the supply of lobster coming out of the state of Maine. So this is like a real business guy, you know. And he recounted a story just being in the woods with his friends and having a saucer literally just appear above them, and them just diving into the grass, terrified of this, you know, silent, windless aircraft, flying craft, just appearing over them. You know, I've actually met a lot of people who have footage and experiences, and have had these experiences since they've happened. I specifically remember getting a message. I worked on a TV show. So after COVID ended, I worked on Los Viajes con los Derbez, which is a reality television show distributed by Amazon following Eugenio Derbez, who's like, I like to compare him to like, he is, oh my God, who's the it man in comedy right now? The young guy from SNL.
Oh, Shane Gillis.
Not Shane,
No.
but the one who dates everyone. Pete
Mal-
Davis, sorry.
Oh,
It's getting kind of hot. It's starting to
sorry.
escape me. It's all good. Yeah, I compare him to like the Mexican Pete Davis, right? He's calling all the shots. He's like A-lister, breaking in the American markets. So that show, we toured the entire Midwest US and filmed in national parks during COVID. It was the only way production could figure out how to safely do the show. And it was an amazing, beautiful experience. And we went to a power vortex near a mountain renowned for UFO activity and Bigfoot activity. And I recounted, before I had these filmed experiences, my experiences with UFOs, and one of the crewmates was your more traditional Midwestern type who just thought that I was a little wacky and wanting attention. But he reached out to me and he actually apologized. And I didn't know that he felt this way about my opinions on the subject. Like, he reached out and said all this to me and was like, I'm sorry, I judged you for telling your story. I thought that, you know, it was weird, but I have to tell you something that happened to me this week. And he recounted a story driving in his car with his little brother. And his little brother was like, what's that? And he said a disc came out of the sky and started flying parallel to their vehicle and came rather close to them. And he was afraid that they were going to be abducted. And he genuinely feared for his life. And he sent me this message. And he talks about this on his podcast too. I'm really happy that he chose to come out and talk about it. Yeah, I would plug him, but yeah, Jason Turner's podcast. I don't know what he's got going on right now, but that story was incredible to me, because he, to me, was not the type of a person who would ever even think about embellishing a story like that.
What part of the country was that in?
Idaho.
That was in Idaho.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a question I have that I was thinking as you're telling, because I had no idea you had these other experiences. I thought you were just talking about the one. But the
It's
fact
a
that
big
there's this
story. I
history-
told you, it's a long timeline of experiences that I've had now.
But I've heard stories, especially when it comes to alien abduction, that these people get visited multiple times. A lot of times it wasn't just like a one-time thing. So I bring that up to say, do you think certain people are chosen to see this? Or do you just think, like you said, you pay attention to it? Like, this stuff may be happening more than people realize, but they're just not looking.
I think it's both. It can be right place at the right time or wrong place at the wrong time. I think a lot of it has to do with intention. I've always been open to it. I've always been fascinated by it. I love sci-fi films and movies. And interesting fact. So I had like a great uncle in Lithuania. When the Cold War happened, the Iron Curtain became a thing. I don't know what happened to this man, but the only thing that I know from my family is that he claimed that he had been abducted by aliens, and everyone thought he was crazy. And I just don't know how crazy he might be anymore. And I don't know how to find out any more about who he was and what he experienced. And I'd like to find out. I feel like it's a good story for another time, though.
Be a nice follow-up story.
Yeah, but um, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of evidence that humans are older than we think we are. I personally come from the camp that human like civilization didn't start 13,000 years ago, but that it restarted 11,000 to 13,000 years ago. There's a lot of there's just a lot of evidence out there that comes back to that time period between 10,000 and 13,000 years ago, and this split in the archaeological record. But like this last year has been an extraordinary year of discoveries. Like there was a skeleton found, and the woman had the bones of a giant sloth in her jewelry, and humans and giant sloths weren't supposed to have coexisted. Um, there was a study in Africa. I think it was the University of Zambia, but I could be completely misquoting that. But this was on CNN. I read a lot of CNN, whatever. I don't care. And they found these foundations in the riverbank in this national preserve, and the logs are carbon dated about 500,000 years old. And they're so old, there's nothing in the archaeological record to compare them to. But that's the dating. And they're the foundations of a wood hut embedded in a riverbank. And they find more skeletons in Mexico. And they're like, oh, well, it turns out humans were probably here 10,000 years before we think they crossed the Bering Strait, which was roughly 11,000, 13,000 years ago. Like it all comes back to that period at the end of the Ice Age. And I think that mystery plays a big role in who we are and where we're going, and our relationship with whoever is out there, right? We're in a process of rediscovery. And when you kind of look at you look at the timeline of human history, and it kind of really does feel like people were coming out of these dark ages. And there's, the flood stories, Noah's flood, Epic of Gilgamesh, and a lot of Native American creator myths and all kinds of things. I love reading Native American myth and stories because there's so many, there's a great documentary on Netflix that follows the Navajo. I hope I'm saying that right. The Navajo Nation, and all this paranormal stuff that happens on the reserve. And the reserve officers go on the show and give their own personal testimony to weird things that they experience. And they say that 99% of the calls they get, it's whatever stuff. But they say the 1%, though, real spooky stuff. Spooky, weird, strange. And you watch the documentary and you're like, whoa.
What type of spooky stuff? Like,
well,
UFO
they
type
talk
stuff, or-
about legitimately like tracking Bigfoot. And they claim to have footage of Bigfoot appearing, but Bigfoot doesn't appear like you think. Like we kind of think of Bigfoot like this terrestrial creature, but think a lot about how in a lot of artistic depictions of Bigfoot, there's always UFOs there. And so these officers testify that they'll follow tracks for Bigfoot for miles, and then they just go cold and suddenly disappear. And it raises the question that maybe Bigfoot is not an earthly terrestrial being or creature, but rather an extraterrestrial who pops down to probably just eat some food, drink some water, and be on his merry organic carbon-based life form way,
So it is Chewbacca.
In your opinion, how big is Bigfoot? How tall are we talking? If you had to guess.
I'm sure they come in all shapes and sizes.
Oh, so it's multiple.
But generally speaking, they're pretty big. So, yeah, the Rangers, they were petitioned by the government, their government. They're like, you have to investigate all the calls, right? You know, we are here for our people. You are here to serve our people. So even though it sounds like a bunch of malarkey, you got to investigate. People are actually scared. People are actually scared. And there's a great interview in there where this woman, she talks about literally coming face to face with Bigfoot because it tried to open her front door. She thought it was her husband. She walks the door, she opens it. And you know what she says? I can't believe my eyes, but I'm face to face with Bigfoot. And I'm just like, I feel the same way. I can't believe my eyes, but I see these things flying at Mach 8 in the sky. Like it's a common theme. And yeah, Bigfoot, he's not living on Earth. He's popping down. And that's why they can never really find him, can't really track him.
See, that I have never heard that theory before, but that actually in a way gives more credit to it. Because like I'm like, dude, they're gonna find a carcass. They're gonna find, especially with phones now, people are recording things all the time. So you're saying
Ring cameras, like every house has a camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would make more sense. No, it's a lot more calculated than that. It's like people are seeing it, but
yeah,
briefly,
we're talking about an advanced race that just looks like, to us, is like a monster, but that's just how life formed for them, you know? And he pops down and he breaks into the tool shed and steals a couple sheep and boom, and then he's off again, you know?
Is that what they claim, that he actually takes stuff, like physical objects?
There's damage to property and stuff that like can't really be explained. Like they have one picture and it looks like the Hulk's fist has literally just punched in a door. And it's deep and it's thick, and you're just like, that looks like a knuckle, but I don't know. But they take plenty of like casings of the footprints and stuff too. I mean, there's a whole body of research, and I'm not like the biggest, I'm not a Bigfoot addict, but I thought it was very interesting that the officers would go on the record, because that's the kind of character that we need speaking up about this, people who said, I was on the duty. I was on the clock. I was on the duty. Funny.
On duty. We know what you mean. Yeah.
I was on the clock, on duty, conducting these exercises and these, this evidence collection. And I was just reading like a Native American myth the other day. They're talking about like these little people, and the little people, they have this magical canoe, and the story, the boy, there's like this boy, he's a hunter and he lives with a neglectful uncle, and he goes into the wood to hunt for their food that day, and encounters these little people trying to hunt for food, and he shoots the squirrel out of the tree and gives the little people the squirrels, and they're like, oh, thank you. We're going to take you on come into our magical canoe and come meet our people. And the boy goes to this village of little people and has this great time, and then he comes back to his other village at the end of the day, and he's like, everyone's like, who are you? And he's like, what? They're like, you're so handsome and you're such a great hunter, like we've never seen you before. Where do you come from? He's like, I'm the little boy from the village. Is my uncle here? They're like, that dude is dead. What do you mean, bro? And and he basically just lives happily ever after because his uncle is dead, and he's come back home and had his hero's journey. But to me, I like read that and I was like, what? That sounds a lot like some kind of an oral tradition speaking to some kind of an abduction-like event, and a person coming back through space-time like in their older form. Now, maybe, I mean, it is just a legend and it's Native American myth, and it could be highly insensitive that I'm even suggesting this, but I mean, it could just be a silly story too, but...
Well, you remind me, and by the way, like this is, there's so many different directions we can go right now.
It gets deep.
Dude,
it gets
as soon
deep.
as you started talking about human civilization past there, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many. Atlantis, and even, going to the Egyptians, that whole thing. Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's like, some of the writings that I've seen in documentaries or shows where they're showing like these flying things on the walls and like and it's like, well, yes, there's imagination, but maybe people were painting what they knew and what was happening there. Because to me, the pyramids is still that whole thing is like, huh? I know they came up with this is how they did it, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I don't know.
The pyramids, were some kind of a power conduit. They're made of a quartz blend of rock, and there's a chamber underneath the pyramid because the pyramids used to run up right up on the edge of the river. So the tides would rise and fall and create static electricity in the chamber underneath the pyramid, and that energy could be channeled through the rock for what ends and what purpose I couldn't exactly tell you, but it's certainly not exactly as described, especially if you get into like pyramid math with like Randall Carlson.
I was going to bring him and Graham
Oh
Hancock,
my God.
man.
Him and Graham, love them both, obviously. I mean, a lot of this comes back to them. They were the first ones to really introduce me to some of these ideas.
I think I got Fingerprints of the Gods and another one over there by Graham, but they go on Rogan a lot. And I'll never forget, I believe it was Randall. This really opened my mind, like just him saying this one statement. He's like, back on the Ice Age, he goes, these glaciers were thousands of feet high. Like people think like, oh, it was like a little, no, he said they were mountains.
A mile thick.
And he said these things are pushing across. So he said stuff like technology would be obliterated, gone. So it's always opened my mind to like, what if we actually had all this technology and things thousands and thousands of years ago, but there, like you said, there was like this reset.
I mean, we're talking about a scale so old. I mean, even the plastics would not still be around, like, and if we're talking about oceans, like in 300 to 400 feet of ocean rising, like that's not the part of the ocean that we're exploring right now. That's like the deepest, most inaccessible, presumably lifeless part of the ocean, but, could have a rich geological record buried right there under the silt and the dirt, or just completely buried under an entire continental shelf. We don't really exactly know all the major processes that happen on Earth when they happen,
And that's a whole other topic right there is the ocean. Because if there was some catastrophic event of some kind that wiped out a bunch of dinosaurs, well, that wouldn't have affected whatever was deep down there anyway. So not saying Godzilla's popping up anytime soon, but it is like crazy. Like, yeah, who knows? Because I don't even know what the farthest we've gone down, but I know we haven't even gotten close.
I think it's important to have these discussions because like, so what? Let's say humanity did restart 11,000 to 13,000 years ago. What does it matter? Like, I still got to pay my bills today. Well, if we look at the legends and the myths that surround the collapse of that society, we were not so different than them, so distracted with warfare and frivolities that the Earth is, undeniably on a path to climate destruction, and the money and the technology that should be put towards green, renewable, sustainable climate energy efforts is going towards making weapons and conducting war on multiple fronts across the globe. And this is the urgent energy of our time. Everyone is, shaking and banging, war is coming. And what we really need to be doing is making some free public electricity and utilities, like renewable public utilities with no profitable corporate interests. Like, everybody needs electricity in the modern age to survive, and these privatized companies have caused great harm and damage to the earth, and that's the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. Like, think about the California fires sparked by PG&E. They owed over $9 billion in damages. And, it's the planet and all of us that suffer. You can see the smoke right now from the wildfires just west of here. And it's massive. It's massive.
Those are the ones
Thousands of
down in Orange
people.
County right now?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, there's some up near San Bernardino, I believe.
Okay. So
Northeast of here. I took a picture of it, and I talk about this on the show. It's like, so what if I saw a UFO? Who cares? Well, I care because someone has the technology to save us, and they are selfishly withholding it for one reason or another. The world will change when we have accessible renewable energy and zero gravity levitation technology. People have this technology, and I know they have it because I've seen it, and the government absolutely knows. So one thing I learned in going down the rabbit hole is that we have these deep space satellites that scan the entire Earth and all its hemispheres and all of its airspace all the time. It's constantly scanning. That's how we have intercontinental ballistic missile detection systems. They're in deep space and they are always scanning the Earth looking for abnormalities. They absolutely know there's a bunch of stuff in the sky that's not supposed to be there, and it's getting crazier and crazier and hotter, not just in this apartment.
yeah. Thank you for bearing with us.
But
with that.
but like the Miami Mall incident, what just happened in the Miami Mall?
What happened there?
So there was this story that there was this massive police response and flights got canceled at Miami International, and people were running and screaming, claiming that they had seen two type of interdimensional beings morph in the middle of the mall, like Stranger Things style. And multiple people have gone on the internet telling testimony of what they saw. It was some kind of an energetic energy being, but the official story is that it was a mall fight and that teenagers were throwing rockets at each other and it was mistaken for a mass shooting event. But if that's the case, where's that video?
Where's any video?
Where's
of
the
it?
video? Literally, like everyone has a camera nowadays. If I was in that mall and I saw a bunch of dudes throwing rockets at each other, I'd be filming that. That's gold. That's TikTok gold. No one has a video of it. There's no video from the mall. There's no video from the bystanders. There's no video from the storefronts. They were literally cutting through metal gates. And the thing, so I really like to approach things with, a seed of doubt, right? I never want to be the guy drinking the Kool-Aid. But what convinced me that this incident actually happened the way that it's being described was the police response the next day. They did some silly, stupid thing and made a joke out of it and try to cast off doubt and suspicion through humor, which is exactly what the local government did in the Phoenix Lights incident back in the 1990s, which is one of the most widely mass witnessed, mass recorded sightings, one of the best pieces of evidence from the 1990s. And it's giving the same energy. And I was like, that shit happened. That shit happened. Because if this really happened the way that they're saying it happened, they take it really seriously, right? We had an accidental mass shooting event. We want to reassure the public that, they are safe. There was no shooter. Like, instead, they're making jokes about it. Like, ha, 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 you think you saw aliens. That's not the conduct of a police department telling the truth. Acting truthfully. That's what we talk about a lot as actors, right? We smell truth a mile away. It stinks. Whatever happened in the Miami Mall, it stinks. And you see the pictures, it's crazy. Like, cops all the way up and down the boulevard. And there's so little documentation. What is up with that? I want the truth.
You remind me, do you guys remember I think it might have been a year ago, but the lady on the plane that's like, that person or whatever is not right, man. You could see she was legitimately freaking out. And she just kept pointing, and then that kind of went away.
I think she was just drunk.
Okay.
I think she was just drunk.
I was thinking maybe like you'd have an explanation, but like, no, she was just.
No, I don't got an explanation for that one. But yeah, it's a wild. There's just an intersection after intersection of things. My uncle actually saw a UFO in the 1970s, and that was reported in the county paper. He and his buddy were driving around and they saw it and they followed it in their car for a while, and they got calls all across the county calling the sheriff's office. We're seeing something in the sky, sheriff. It's 1970s in Ohio, so obviously it's like, what do you want me to do about it? Drinking bourbon in the office,
Wow, man. Well, dude, I know it's warm in here. I know, appreciate you sticking through with us.
Oh, it's all good. I can talk about this all night.
Okay, this is, dude, I love this stuff. And we haven't had a podcast like this. Like this pulls out like the Joe Rogan, stuff type of podcast. Like Randall Carson, Graham Hancock. I've listened to the Bob Lazar ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's these topics that you're like, oh, well, what does it matter? It's like, well, I want to know. I'm just curious. I'm curious in like what the history that we were taught and the way we were taught the world is. But then you start seeing these, wait a minute. They found what in what country? And well, doesn't that go against what I learned over here? So it really does make you think, well, what is the truth? Like, what is the origins?
Mm-hmm.
The
cartographer who made and named the Atlantic Ocean, he was Dutch, and he never left that country's borders. That map was drawn based off of the accounts and stories of sailors and merchants. So there's a very long oral tradition of understanding, that the Atlantic Ocean was named after the continent of Atlantis that was there, for which the Atlas Mountains are named in North Africa, just beyond the Strait of Gibraltar and the Pillars of Hercules. The interesting thing, I went into a bookshop the other day and I found an old book on Atlantis and I bought it, and it was unfortunately stolen from me. Someone stole my bag when I was at work, so I got like halfway through the book. But the author laid out an interesting argument where he was like, back in Plato's time, and Plato was he's the only written record we have of Atlantis, which is why the story is so cast into doubt. But in Plato's time, their understanding of the earth was like, there was Europe, there was Africa, and there was Asia. And it existed on a flat plane, and if you sailed far enough, you died. There's nothing there, and but your death, or people thought you actually fell off the earth, and shout out to the flat earthers, But Plato very accurately describes what would basically be the Caribbean island chain beyond where this landmass was supposed to have existed. He says, there was this landmass, it was roughly in this area, and if you went even further beyond it, basically, there was this chain of islands. And when we talk about ocean levels, in that time, the oceans are 300 to 400 feet, lower than they are today. Think about how much exposed land there would actually be and how easily navigable that land would be, right? We're talking about not the depths of the grand Atlantic Ocean, but rather, something that's much more shallow and tame before the Atlantic Gulf Stream existed. And that's what really caught my attention. It's like, if the world is not supposed to exist any further beyond what they understand it, how is this guy going to hit it right on the head describing the Caribbean island chain? And Graham does visit a part of Key West on his show. They have I think they call it the Bimini Road, and it's like this collection of blocks they're massive multi-ton blocks. And they definitely look like they've been carved and shaped. It doesn't look like anything the ocean would naturally procure. The ocean generally tends to have very rounded, well-rounded, well-smoothed, symmetrical shapes. You can see it. And that connects it, that could be a connecting point between these two parts of the earth. And the people probably had much better knowledge of sailing than we think they did. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept for sure.
Now you're just opening up. Now I got to ask you: have you ever looked into Antarctica,
Um,
Admiral Byrd, and all that
I,
jazz?
I've looked a little bit into Antarctica.
That one fascinates me.
I'd have to read more on that. I don't know so
Yeah.
much about the polar ice caps.
Yeah, and I'm pulling from random YouTube videos, and but the theories of like how I believe Admiral Byrd, they took like a bunch of power down there, military power down there, and they came back and saying like, yeah, like it's not what you think it is. It's not just this tundra of ice that they tell you it is. It's like, no, there's actually grass, and they're saying like woolly mammoths and all types of stuff was
What?
down. Yeah.
Really?
And that's why people aren't really allowed to go down there.
Well,
like
I
that.
can say with certainty that I just worked with a gal who worked as a refueler in Antarctica, and she definitely did not describe any grass or woolly mammoths.
Well, is there a point though where they can't go? They go to a certain point, but I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah, the certain point is the point when you don't come back with enough fuel and you die. Or you get hunted by a polar bear, which is the only species of bear that will actively hunt humans.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They'll eat you.
I know Antarctica plays a good role in the flat earth theory too. So I don't know. Maybe that's where I was.
And I just remembered something super random.
Okay.
And since this is an entertainment podcast,
Yeah.
I thought I would steer this conversation in a newer, more graspable direction. Because
Sure.
you start throwing out the Atlantis theories, and some people with no understanding beforehand, they're just like
They've clicked off the video.
They're like, yeah, you're bum. Not really, but you do, I think, need a little bit of understanding of the subject to really understand. Like, you're talking about Plato, now you're talking about Atlantis as a Disney movie. But Disney is the segue here. One of the best alien documentaries I've ever seen was produced by the Walt Disney Company in the 1990s. This is a real documentary produced by Disney. It is so real that Michael Eisner opens it with a monologue where he goes, aliens are real, but where and when we meet them, we don't know. And basically gives this opening monologue about aliens, and then is like, these secrets are usually kept in labs like this one behind me. And the camera pans out and he's surrounded by 4 uniformed military personnel with M16s in their hands. And he goes, let's go in and check it out. And he turns it around and they crouch in and they like physically intimidate him and prevent him from going inside. And he turns around and goes, oh, well, maybe not. And then it's like one of the most elaborate Disney opening credit sequences I've ever seen. I'm saying this, you know how like the modern one is like, da 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 da, it's like 30 seconds, right? This thing is like a minute and a half of like da 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 da. It's extravagantly Disney. And then the documentary just takes off. In the next 43 minutes, you're like, what in the actual?
Do you know the name of this?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. You just Google Disney UFO documentary. It was produced in the mid-90s. It only aired in 5 cities for one night and then was never seen or heard again, except for the online download. So this documentary was produced as a promotion for the alien encounter experience in New Tomorrowland at the Walt Disney World Resort. Have you ever been on that experience?
The Tomorrowland?
The original alien encounter.
No, I have not.
I will tell you, that ride was the scariest fucking ride a child could ever go on in their life. Basically, you go, like the queue is like an alien lab, and everyone goes into this mutual shared alien chamber. You get locked in, and then they simulate what meeting an alien would be like for the first time. And it's like the alien from Alien versus Predator. like an acid spitting teeth. This thing is a monster. And it very realistically escapes from the center capsule. And then they do all their 4D effects where they're like shooting you with water and they're tickling the back of your neck and the back of your legs. And like by the end of this ride, all of the children are crying. There is no one who comes off this ride who is like, wow, I had a magical day. It's actually quite terrifying. They eventually turned that ride into the Stitch encounter. And then that ride eventually closed because it still just didn't score well with audiences and it's still scary. Even with Stitch as the lovable alien, it can still be quite frightening. And the documentary is to promote this ride. But I think the ride itself, and this is probably I'm never gonna work for the Walt Disney Company ever again for saying this on a microphone. But the ride itself, to me, felt almost like some kind of a propaganda attempt to dissuade the public from ever wanting to contact an alien. I mean, it would make the most sense, right? You build a public attraction that's really freaking scary, and you introduce people to a concept to dissuade them from ever wanting to investigate it ever again. And what better way to do that than to traumatize them as a child? Now, the documentary they made to promote the ride was so real and so legit that they had to pull it, though. I think that's my take on it. The documentary like literally talks about people being abducted and probed, and like former like Air Force officers who are like, I was dishonorably discharged. Like it's very serious. It's very serious and not Disney at all. And that's what makes it so astonishing. And you can see some of the clips of the original ride. It's in the documentary, but this thing is real as I live and breathe, and it's one of the best alien documentaries you'll ever see.
Thank you for sharing that. It's almost like the government told Disney, like, you're going to do your part here. You're going to do this for us.
I don't understand it. Like everything about it just doesn't make sense. Like anyone who went to classic Disney World in Orlando would tell you that the alien encounter ride stuck out like a sore thumb and was so far from what you would consider to be Disney magic. It really makes you wonder why. Why would they make this terrifying, gut-wrenching alien ride in this very happy, magical, it's a small world after all? You know what's down the street? It's the Tomorrowland experience. There's a great, bright, beautiful tomorrow. And then you go in the next attraction and it's like riding the Jurassic Park ride. Like they got the spitting lizards. That's what that ride was like. Why did you do this, Disney? Who came up with this? I want to know the truth.
Right now in the YouTube comments, wherever this goes, people are going to come out and say, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one.
I really hope this is the part that should be promoted for sure. Like, use this for the promo clips.
There's so many clips already to this point. Trust me.
I have so many friends who still work for Disney too. And I'm definitely going to be like hawking this real hard on Facebook. Like, hey, all my old Disney fam, like, you got to watch this. Let me know in the comments. Do you remember this ride? Do you remember shitting your pants? Because I sure do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Well, dude, is there anything else you wanted to share on this podcast? Anything else?
Oh.
Well, I mean, just checking our...
What's the time?
We got about 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. I want to talk about all of the amazing, wonderful, good things that happened to me after having these experiences.
Oh, please do.
Because we so often talk about these encounters and living in fear of the unknown, fear of being abducted, fear of being harmed. But what happened for me after seeing that UFO in Miami began an honest to God spiritual a reawakening for me, to realize that there's so much that we don't know. It just like reinvigorated this desire and this need for truth and spiritual connection with a higher power and with a greater source. because at the end of the day, we're all coming from this same source energy. You, me, these beings, and I have found a lot of peace and love and light in my life and comfort and joy in that mystery. It's exciting, it's exciting to look in the sky and to hope to have an experience and to be able to show other people, because I think ultimately this is one of many ways that we are going to save ourselves as the human race, with all of its flaws and imperfections, as a global society, as a global family, as a global community. Everything changes when it becomes a universal community. And that ultimately, like, what a wonderful, beautiful idea. Like, imagine the day when we're actually going to be able to meet other sentient, conscious, loving beings. I genuinely think that there are more benevolent forces out there than malevolent, but both definitely exist in the canon, in the history, in the interviews, in the testimonials of people who have been affected. Because we're talking about science and energy in a way that frankly is going to frighten people. It frightens people to consider that our systems are flawed and our science is wrong, and all you can do is just continue to seek truth and be love and be light and be courageous, and good things will happen no matter what. You don't have to see a UFO for good things to happen, obviously. But that magic, that mystery it's alive and it's real. There's a reason that the government approached Steven Spielberg while he was making Close Encounters and said, "You can't make this movie." And he said, "I am going to make this movie." He knows what's up. Steve, you obviously know what's up. Like,
They really came to him and said that.
there's a very, very rich, deep history of all of the things that we've talked about tonight. Like Disney was renowned for magic and mysticism in his work. A lot of his work is based off of heavy spiritual ideas and concepts and science fiction. They made a movie about Atlantis. And it captured someone's imagination. It's a fantastic film. It's the best secret no one ever talks about. But it definitely is alive well here in Hollywood. Absolutely. Early 2000s animated film was great. Fantastic. Touches on a lot of those same ideas and concepts. Of course, it's dramatized for Disney, but like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. It's deeply spiritual. They're working with energy that they don't understand, and it's a really fun interpretation of a steampunk world where people have figured out other ways of living than our own.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I appreciate you saying that. Because yeah, I mean, really, from what I'm gathering, I mean, you realize it emphasized more to you that there's something way bigger than ourselves out there. Whatever you want to think this stuff is or it's not, it ain't part of the regular program
Yeah.
that we're accustomed to.
Yeah, for sure. And it's buckle up, people. Just buckle up, because it's only going to get wilder and weirder every year. And with the proliferation of technology and the surveillance state in general, not just the surveillance state, but there's cameras everywhere. There are communities on Facebook, on Reddit, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of members deep. Are we all just having a mass hallucination, or are these really happening? I'm more inclined to believe that, yes, it's really happening. And what comes next just really excites me.
Dude, I love it, man. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for.
Yeah,
We're going to have to talk more, man, because we could definitely talk we'll have to do a part 2. But Eric, do you have any final questions, thoughts?
No, very interesting. I try not to give too much energy towards that stuff, because I feel like it's like the skeleton key, that movie. It's like it only messes with you if you believe in it, and like find it and chase it. So it's like, but it was definitely entertaining to hear it all, and yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And I'm not always buried in this. I don't spend every day like combing the internet, like where was the latest sighting, like what's going on, and alienhq.com, I didn't ask for any of this to happen to me.
Right.
It just happened and I bore witness to it, and that's the way it is, and I'm here to share that story.
Yeah.
So
Well, this has been awesome too, because, we've had a couple of interactions and like, oh yeah, no, Julian's going to come on, tell us UFO, but dude, this blew me away. Like I had no idea what you were coming in with as far as like the backstory. And
yeah.
so this has been great. And I know you do lots of other things. So before we get to the end here, where can people check out what you do? If you want to tell people more of what you do, where are the appropriate places for them to go?
Cool. Well, I'm super broke right now. My platform is broken, but if you really want to stay in touch and see what I got going on, you can follow me on my Instagram right now. I'm very active on Instagram. That's at JKazOfficial. That's JKazOfficial. If you type in JKazO, I'm usually the first person that pops up. I got this silly little looking up picture, and I am producing music and releasing music, and always engaged in new fun. And now that I'm going to be down in the OC, I should have some more space, and I'm going to be like recording and singing and doing more voiceover work, and just trying to do audio based stuff at home so I can have more time to enjoy myself instead of traveling so much. Yeah,
man. Well, best of luck with the move, and congrats on everything you got going on, man.
Thank you,
I'm really
man.
glad that.
And congrats to you. Thank you so much for letting me come on the show and being so trusting and sensitive towards this story, because it can be kind of silly and goofy, but I really admire and respect what you guys are doing. 107 plus episodes now.
Yeah.
Like that's an accomplishment. And like Mr. Carnegie used to say at Playhouse West, get on the train before it leaves the station.
Oh,
And I'm absolutely destroying the station.
Dude, thank you so much for saying
I want to get on the
man.
train. I'm on the Sam Dever train. Am I saying that right? It's not Dever or
It's
something?
Dever.
Oh my God.
I was wondering if you're going to correct them.
Oh no. Mamma mia. Right at the end too. Here I was thinking flawless victory for an interview. Sam Dever.
It's all good, man. Though.
Sam
Yeah.
Dever and Devers. This man is marching on. Catch him every month, folks. It's the Sam Dever Show.
No, this has been beautiful, man. I'm a big believer in on this journey. We meet the people who we're supposed to. Because I would definitely love to do a part 2 with you one day. Because we didn't. As soon as you opened up, like past the UFOs to like human civilization. I mean, dude, there's a whole 3-hour thing we can do with just.
It's
that.
all connected. It's honestly all connected. It's very hard to understand these things by themselves without looking at the big picture. And we can absolutely examine that big picture. And I'll do I'm like an armchair expert in this now. I'll do some internet sleuthing. And when I come back on, I'll bring all the references. And I have videos too. I have videos that I've collected from friends. Oh man, we'll save it for the next time.
Sure.
But before I went on the show, I went to this house party called Mystic Manor, and I met this awesome guy, former Green Beret, former CIA, showed me the most incredible piece of paranormal evidence I've ever seen caught on camera. And I begged him. I said, please give me this footage because no one is going to understand what I'm talking about. But it's incredible. I can't believe I didn't even think about bringing this up earlier. But
You said paranormal as in ghost?
No, it's like a UFO video, but it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen caught on camera. And perhaps we can save that as a cliffhanger for episode 2.
Well, I can make it. Is it worth telling the story?
Yeah.
Well, we're going over then. Tell this. Can you tell it in 10 minutes.
I can tell it that fast. Okay, so this happened. Again, I really wish I had the footage. So he tells me that his ex-fiance shot this video in 2022, a few months after my own experiences in Louisiana. So she describes an experience that she says the sky whited out. It went blank. I'm like, okay. He's like, so she started filming. This is the video. So in the video, what you see is she's like filming out of her window in this old Southern style backyard. And there's these pine trees and they kind of divot in the center. And through the center, you can see the entire valley for miles and miles and miles. It's gorgeous. It's right around sundown. And the sun is coming from behind the camera. And there's this cloud, very tall, thick, voluminous southern storm cloud. And out of the cloud appear these two orange orbs, not so unlike the color of the orb that I saw in Bakersfield, but they're illuminating from inside out the cloud, right? So they, and the light is coming out, and then there's this flurry of smaller UFO activity. And just like how I said, you got to take it frame by frame to see it, just like you see these little black specks, these things flying, so many of them, just, and then the sky whites out and it does the thing that she described. And I'm telling you, I've worked in film and television a long time. I ain't never seen this on a camera before. The light, it's like someone turns the saturation white hot and the light starts bleeding from behind the trees into the camera lens, like wing, and the whole sky goes white, like she was describing. And you can very clearly see the light is coming from behind the trees, right? And there's a wing, and then it stops, and then again, wing, and it does it one more time. And when the light recedes on the third flash, the entire cloud was gone. The whole cloud and the two orbs gone. And I was like, I'm going to need you to rewind that because I don't know what in the hell I just saw. I tried to get him on the show, but we couldn't get him on because the footage was filmed by his ex-fiance. So he did not have the rights to the footage. But when this was like, this footage kept me up all night that night. I didn't sleep. I was like, what was that? And that's when I just started meeting people. Tons of people have experiences in footage and they're just afraid to come forward. So we should wrap it up. Come forward. Don't be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's actually a surprisingly common. I've met people that you would never expect who have had experiences across the spectrum.
For some reason, Will Smith Independence Day just came into my mind. Like the guy at the end, one of the best movie scenes is at where, he had been abducted years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's the guy at the end. He's like, I'm back. He flies right into the ship and blows them all up. But that goes to those past experiences because throughout the movie, everyone thought he was crazy. Because for years, but then when they came, like, oh no, he was telling the truth. So
yeah, truth is out there. Yeah, and that's all I want.
Well, Julian, thank you so much for coming on. I always give the guests the last word, final word. How do you want us to end this podcast?
God bless you all. Yeah, and I mean it. Look out for each other. Times are getting crazy. World's getting crazy. People are not telling the truth about a lot of different things. It's time that we start separating fact from fiction, alien encounters, and just start living in our truth, real truth, and that's really just love and light. So God bless you all.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
Hi, everyone. Sam Dever, the Sam Dever podcast here. And I just want to thank you for checking out this episode. To watch and listen to future episodes, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Thank you so much. See you soon.